Thank you, Russ, and thank you, everyone. I echo the feelings of everyone else. It's great to see so many people and so many people interested in curlew recovery, and it shows the power of what we can all do together. I'm going to change the tone a bit because Curlew Country is a small project that is very much action-based, so not focusing on science and research quite so much, although we do some of that as we go along. But I'm going to talk to you in particular about our experiences on the ground in working, we work with the wider community, but particularly in working with farmers. And I know that Chloe is going to follow on from that with her experiences in the upland. So we work on the Welsh and Shropshire borders, and I'm having fun with my handing on, Russ, sorry, bear with me. And our farms are mainly beef and sheep, and although we're hilly country, our farms actually grew out of miners' small holdings were left in that area, and we only have small bits of remnant fallen left. And when I went into the, when I was appointed to the post, I was asked to go and visit farmers and to ask them to manage their habitat better for curlews and to help them get into agri-environment schemes. And I've got a photo of this lovely man who is called Wimford, and he was the first person to contact me, and he said something along the lines of, I really don't want to work with you guys. You conservationists are all a pain in the neck. I have so many of you coming and telling me what to do. You all tell me something different. None of it works. I love curlews, but why should I give up my living to help them when predation is the problem? And you guys are just not doing anything about it. You've got to get real, which was a great start, I have to say. But I found similar things when I went to speak to other farmers as well. So it was fairly clear that the project was not going to work in the way it was originally designed at that stage. And we went back to the drawing board, and I designed a project where we worked grassroots up with farmers, because thinking about it, they are the guys who can deliver over most of the land, that huge proportion of land that they manage on the ground, and we are not going anywhere if we can't take those guys with us. So I went back to them and said, look, please, will you work with us? Will you work in partnership with us? And can we find out what's really happening on the ground? I know that you're pretty fed up. There were conservationists locally standing up and saying it's all farmers' fault, you know, it's dreadful, they destroy the curlews. But actually my findings were that they really love curlews, and they really, as Jeff has said, wanted to do something about it. And then the farmers in turn were saying, well, it's all predation. So, you know, it was one thing or the other. And we said, look, we need to find out what's really going on here. And can we work with you? Can we put some cameras onto the land and find out why nests are failing? And this is a picture of a camera on a nest. There are actually 6 eggs in that nest, because very unusually there were 2 females laying in it, and that's the sort of nest site that you think a curlew might choose, and that's actually a nest site on Stately Common. However, as Jeff has pointed out and Sam has pointed out, most of our curlews actually nest in something that looks a little more like this, mainly silage crops, and here's a pie chart showing that over 50% of them are choosing fairly intensively managed agricultural crops to nest in our area. And we put cameras up, and this is what we found. So we had a badger selfie and a fox selfie and even a sheep selfie there. But we knew that by finding the nests and pointing them out to the farmers, so you can just in the middle of that picture see an area left with a nest in it, which wasn't silage. So we knew that we were also protecting those nests from agricultural damage by finding them and alerting the farmers to where they were. And in 2015 and 2016, we monitored over 30 nests. And I'm afraid that no chicks survived from any of those nests. In year 2, we heard about Natalie Meyer in Germany, who was trialing the temporary electric fencing. We put that up around 3 nests, and 3 nests got beyond egg stage to hatch chicks. But our findings were that over 50% of predation events were by foxes, just under 25% by badgers, the rest for a variety of reasons. And we knew from our observations on the farms that if they hadn't gone to predation, they would have gone, as others have said, to accidental agricultural disturbance. So we needed to act. We have a population of 40 curlews. We knew that their fate was similar to that described by others in their graphs previously shown, and that we were going to lose them if we didn't do something urgently. So year 3 was a year of action, and the farmers came with us. We'd shown them what the problems were. We also work with a lot of local volunteers, and we'd said to them at the outset, look, you know, we need to find out what's going on here. The farmers think it's predation. This might be something that we have to really take seriously if we find that that is the case. And all sorts of other people said, oh dear, predation, I'm not quite so sure about that, and I'm not sure you should be talking to people about it. But in fact, I did speak to people about it openly. Only a couple said that they were nervous about it. I think actually 3 of probably 60 people I spoke to about it. And at the end of those years, only one of them said, look, you know, in fact, he was good enough to say, I understand the problem and you might have to deal with it, but it's not for me. And the others said, we've seen the evidence, we need to come with you. So we had a brilliant situation where the community was becoming more cohesive. It was recognizing what the real problems were and wanting to act together to take action about it. So in 2017, we fenced every nest that we possibly could with the temporary electric fencing. We also trialled a curlew nest site, and you can see curlews in the middle of the picture there. So we thought we'd leave that area uncut, and we fenced it, and we hope that the curlews would pop in there once the field had been mown to form a nest site, but in fact that failed. And we applied for the first UK license to Head Start, which Jeff's talked a bit about. So that's incubating eggs, and in our case we were incubating the eggs, putting them back into nests at pipping stage, so that we knew what happened to the eggs, and we needed to find out what was happening to the chicks. So we were incubating the eggs, putting them back into the nests to discover what was going on, and then when we were radio tagging the chicks to track them and find out their fate. And very sadly, all of those chicks were lost. And we often couldn't tell how they were lost. They were often taken out of range, so either underground, or they were taken so far away. On the left-hand side of the screen, you can see that's a chick with a tag taken off. That one was taken by a fox. But anecdotally, from our observations, we could see that avian predators were coming much more into play in terms of the fate of the chicks. We also worked with a farm business manager to assess the losses to farm businesses as a result of sacrificing crops. When we started work with farmers in partnership, we said to them at the outset, we can't expect you to give up your income for conservation. We know that, and we want to work with you to make sure that your businesses are thriving as well. We work in an area where we have small farms, and a great deal of those farm incomes is made up of agri-environment schemes, because it's poor land, they can't vary from what they're doing already. And we wanted to make sure that we knew and we understood them, and we understood what their problems were as well, so that we could work with them to achieve joint success in all areas. And as Jeff has said, farmers love curlews, and we found that there's this wonderful honeymoon period where they say, no, it's fine, I'll leave my crop. And 2 years down the line, they're unable to do that because they just can't afford to do so. It's had such an impact on the farm business. So as Jeff has quite rightly said, the longer term solution needs to be more creative, and that is exactly why we wanted to gather that data in terms of costing and so on, because we knew at some stage that would be needed for policymakers. We also trialled predation control over some areas, and this picture is of an adult at the front and a curlew chick at the back. You can see still lighter and slightly downy feathers and more slender and not as developed a bill. And that is one of the few chicks that we got away through our predation control, which was just over a little bit of our area, and through farmer support as well. In year 4, we didn't have the funding to carry on with the predation control and to carry on with our farmer support as we had before, and we had a population of a significant population of 40 curlews, which was disappearing, and we were rather desperate, thinking, right, how are we going to do anything that might help them if we haven't got the funding to do what we know is really needed? So as a sticking plaster measure, as Jeff has described, an emergency measure, we applied for the first license to fully Head Start curlew chicks. And we took the eggs and we incubated them and we reared the chicks, and we released 21 chicks back into their natural environment that year. And I can't stress enough that it is an emergency measure and that we should be concentrating on the longer term solutions if we possibly can. But what it is an uplifting story after 2 or 3 really grueling years of seeing nest after nest being just failing, and 2 years where we produced no chicks at all. We decided that we did our head starting in a very rudimentary way, I have to say, when we started out, and we decided that we couldn't do any worse than take first clutches of eggs, give the birds in their nests a second chance at nesting, and at least perhaps give some chicks the chance of returning and keeping our population going. And that's, those of you who are poultry keepers will recognize that very rudimentary hen incubator in which a chick is just incubated and is ready to go out. People always comment on the size of the feet. And in year 5, we were joined by fantastic partners, the Wildfowl and Wetlands Trust, and in the head starting element of the project, and they brought their expertise, their avicultural expertise, and their fantastic equipment. They of course have had great experience in helping other species through head starting, but it was a first for them that year to start curlew head starting. And what happened with that input was that our egg to hatch rate increased dramatically, and we were able to release 33 chicks back into the world. But I'm coming back to what Jeff said earlier, and apologies to those of you who are hearing slightly the same thing again. But curlew is a species that is going to deliver all these other things, and I've just put some random benefits that it will deliver as this umbrella species. If we manage properly for curlew, if we manage habitat properly, it's going to deliver all these other topical, political, environmental outputs. So it's a wonderful keystone species in that respect. And more than that, so that's the sort of top-down stuff, what we want to achieve. And Jeff has talked about the forthcoming agri-environment schemes, but you've got a top-down and a bottom-up effect here, because you've got farmers and land managers. We have lots of volunteers on farming partners and volunteer land managers who are really, really keen to help these birds. Our farming group move really quickly onto thinking about what is needed for curlew and all those other environmental outputs and how they might help them. So you've got from both directions, you've got this sort of sandwich of the willing, if you like, and we now have a fantastic opportunity, but a really short time scale in which to achieve that. And I really hope that I'm very excited about the Curlew Recovery Partnership, because I think that this is going to mean that we are able to pool our resources, pool our knowledge, and make the most of that opportunity.